Welcome to the story of the most out of control gang Chinatown has ever seen. We're going to be talking about David Tai, the leader of the Canal Boys, aka Born to Kill. Now, David Tai's story starts out on the streets of Saigon in 1956. Young David was a hustler, war-torn country that did not stop him from trying to make a buck. During the Vietnam War, he was actually brokering drug deals between American GIs and the local crime syndicates. When Saigon finally fell in 1975, David Tai made it out of there and landed in Indiana. But he definitely was not happy with the small town, simple life. He booked a one-way bus ticket to New York City to try and live the life he saw for himself. When he first moved over here to New York, landed in Chinatown, worked odd jobs, but that wasn't enough. He was like, hell no, this is not for me. While he was enrolled in NYU, he met a young lady, land fam, got her pregnant, and you already knew the odd jobs had to stop. He had to start making some real money and quick. In 1983, he actually joined the Flying Dragons, which is obviously a Chinese gang. And him being Vietnamese, even though he tried to tell them, hey, I'm ethnically Chinese, they weren't buying it, so he was never really fully accepted. They had him and any other Vietnamese associated with them do all the grunt work. You're here to take the gun and shoot people, and that's it. He tried to reason with them and say, hey, let me do my own thing. I'll still be under you, but let me control the Vietnamese kids and we can start making our own money. And they were like, nah, buddy, get the stepping. Not realizing what they just did, they gave David Tai his biggest money-making opportunity, as he would get into the counterfeit watch business and basically take over Canal Street. That whole strip was his. Now, as he started to increase his influence, all the other Vietnamese kids would come to him, and that's when the Canal Street Boys were born. They also used the name Born to Kill because that was actually written on the helmet in one of the characters in the movie Full Metal Jacket, Born to Kill. So they adopted that in 1988. So now the gang is making big money through extortion by forcing shops to sell their watches that they would get for like $100 for thousands of dollars, or else. So as far as a money-making guy and leader, David Tai really was that dude. His problem, I think, was his thirst for violence. After a successful raid was conducted by the NYPD that took down a couple of his lieutenants and confiscated a lot of merchandise, he had the audacity to actually car bomb a police cruiser in front of the 5th Precinct. Another example of their reckless and unnecessary violence was the murder of Sen Van Ta, who was a Chinatown jewelry store owner. On March 10, 1991, he was killed execution style during a robbery. He refused to be extorted anymore by BTK. He was not having it, and obviously for them, that's a no-no, because either you gotta do something to make him pay, or else the other store owners are gonna follow his trend and not pay either. This unnecessary act would later bite David Tai and the BTK movement and gang as a whole in the butt. Now, this whole time, BTK is really not taking that many losses as far as manpower. They're not getting dropped like that. And I think that kind of fed into his ego and felt like he can kind of do whatever he wants. He felt like Bigfoot stomping around. And that caused him to make his biggest mistake. One of the most notorious acts of brazen violence in Chinatown history was committed by BTK, the Winnie's Lounge double homicide. Qui Tran, under the direct direction of David Tai, was sent into Winnie's Lounge, walked into a crowded bar, and shot Peter Wong and Dak Leong, both who were members of the rival Ghost Shadows gang. The Chinatown Tongs, just like the Italian Mafia, had an unwritten set of rules. The last thing they wanted was police presence and heat to disrupt their operations. David Tai, not being from Chinatown and being Vietnamese himself, did not respect these unwritten rules. Uncle Benny, Uncle Seven Benny Ong, called a meeting for David Tai to attend. And David Tai decided, because he's not from there, he doesn't respect their rules, he just did not show up. That was the ultimate sign of disrespect for Uncle Benny, and he could not tolerate it. He had to make an example of this guy. So David Tai's right-hand man, Vin Vu, aka Amigo, would have to be the one to feel the consequences of David Tai's actions. On June 20th, 1990, Vin Vu just finished closing up their massage parlor on Canal. As he left the vicinity, on the corner of Canal and Broadway, in a drive-by shooting, Vin Vu was gunned down at the age of 21. This was obviously devastating for David Tai and really put things into perspective and let him know they can be touched. But unfortunately, the violence was nowhere near over. Now on July 28, 1990, they had Vin Vu's funeral on Mulberry Street in NYC, here in New York, and in an act of defiance, they held up BTK banners and stood tall. What they didn't know was when they went to Linden, New Jersey to bury Vin Vu, that there was a big surprise waiting for him. 4 gunmen posing as mourners with Uzi submachine guns and a shotgun inside the bouquet of flowers opened fire at the crowd. Luckily enough, no one died. Only about 4 or 5 people were hit and had to go to the hospital. But at the end of the day, that's a huge wake-up call. Those 2 recent events literally forced BTK out of Chinatown. They moved to Coney Island to lay low. This effectively, and the indictments that would come along, would basically be the end of the BTK gang. They were around for a very short time, probably a little too bold, which was probably the reason for their quick rise, but also the reason for their quick fall. David Tai, though, is actually still alive, serving time, life without parole.